This is the story on how the United States of America became colonized. Before the United States became a superpower, before the New York City, before the Washington DC, this land already had a people, culture, and a nation. The story of America did not begin in 1776. It began with colonization. And so this video explains how the United States of America was colonized, who benefited out of its colonization, and who suffered, and how this event still shapes America even today. Long before Europeans arrived in the North America, this land was a home to millions of people. The Native American tribes lived across the land. Among them were the Apache, the Cherokee, the Iroquois, the Sioux, and many other tribes. They farmed, hunted, traded, and governed themselves as a means of livelihood under their governance. Some lived in permanent towns, others moved with the seasons. This was not an empty land. It was occupied with organizations, cultural and tribes of people. The land that would sooner be invaded by the British, the Spanish, and the other colonial power, who even up to date insist that they were the founders of the United States of America. The year 1492, a Spanish explorer by the name Christopher Columbus sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, a journey of unknown, when European countries wanted a direct access to spices, silk, and gold from Asia. The existing land routes were long and controlled by other powers, and Spain hoped to become wealthy and powerful through trade. Columbus also aimed to spread Christianity to the new land. He wanted fame, title, and wealth, so he became the first daring Spanish explorer to go beyond the borders of Spain and explore the American land. On his journey to the land of America, Christopher Columbus took a very risky journey. August 3rd, 1492, he reached the land of Caribbean. That was in October 12th. The journey across the Atlantic took about 2 months. In total, that added up to 70 days. Among the challenges that Columbus faced on his voyage, the sailors became so worried and believed that the ocean was dangerous and endless. Many were afraid they would never see the land again. After weeks at the sea with no land in sight, the crew became frustrated and more scared even. Some even threatened to turn back. Columbus had no chance to give up, but only to convince them to continue with the journey. Food and fresh supplies started running low. Since the journey took longer than expected, this increased tension among the crew. Navigation tools were so basic, they relied on the compass, stars, and dead reckoning. There were no accurate maps at the Atlantic. They also faced strong winds and unpredictable ocean currents, and storm was among the most threatening challenge that they faced along their journey. The ships were small. During those days, the ships that were used were among them Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. Living conditions in these small ships were very uncomfortable for the months of journey. On Christmas Day 1492, the Santa Maria ran aground and was destroyed near present-day Haiti. And these were very serious challenges, as the journey had not come to the point where it was expected, the land of America. He did not reach what is now called the United States, but his voyage changed history. Spain began claiming lands in the America soon after the Europeans brought diseases like smallpox, and millions of Native Americans died, not from war, but from illness they had never encountered before. This weakened the entire civilization. The American land became a prime target to most of the colonial powers, and England was not left out. In the year 1607, England had also a very promising land that they expected to explore. The benefit of the England, economic profit. Virginia Company wanted to find gold, silver, and other valuable resources. They also hoped to discover trade route to Asia. England also wanted raw materials like timber and crops that could be sent back home. At the same time, England wanted to compete with Spain and other European countries by claiming land of the Northern America, as that could make that colonial power more stronger and powerful. Among also the claims of the England was to aim to spread Christianity to the Native American land actually. Some also settled hopes to own land and improve their social status. For example, in Jamestown Town, Virginia, this became England's first permanent settlement in the North America in the year 1607. During these eras of the Spain and the England, the American people's life became so desperate. Life was brutal, people starved, many died, as the colonial power were trying to impose their authority on them. They had no choice but to use a very brutal system to make them submit under their colony. The Native Americans helped the settlers survive, but conflicts soon followed. The English wanted land, native tribes also wanted land as well as to survive, and that became the first reason as why the problem arose between the colonial power and the natives. Year 1607, England established 13 colonies along the east coast. The reason? They wanted economic motivation to continue through the year 1600s. From 1607 to 1733, England kept forming colonies to compete with Spain, France, and the Netherlands. And among those places where they settled were Massachusetts, or Plymouth by then, and Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. Many settlers moved during the entire colonial period seeking land and better life. During these times, while the colonists spoke about freedom, many people were enslaved and denied basic human rights in America. Slavery became a major part of the colonial economy, especially in the southern parts of America, as slaves had a very high demand in working in their industries and doing production, also working in their farms and helping them to mine minerals. Slavery began becoming a very serious business as it empowered the manpower in the growth of these colonial countries. Beginning from the beginning of the year 1636, Native Americans were pushed off their ancestral lands. Colonists fought wars against the native tribes, such as Pequot War, that happened in the year 1636 to the year 1638. Another war was King Philip's War, that was fought in the year 1675 to the year 1676. Many native communities were defeated, killed, or forced to flee, as they were considered by then to be inferior and not well trained to handle the white colonists. The colonists often made treaties that took large areas of land. Sometimes native leaders were pressured, tricked, and misunderstood the arguments. As more English settlers arrived, they cleared forests, built farms, and claimed land, pushing native people further west. Europeans brought diseases like smallpox and measles. Native population had no immunity, and many died. This weakened their resistance and made their strong army to losing their numbers. In the year 1800, the US government passed laws like the Indian Removal Act 1830 that was supposed to force the tribes to move west, and this led to events like the Trail of Tears, where many Native Americans suffered and died during relocations. Colonies sometimes destroyed crops and villages, making it impossible for tribes to survive on their traditional lands as their food were no more. So it was not one single event. It happened over and over again, many years through conflict, pressure, and government policies. And these were the means that the English used to paralyze the Native Americans. The entire tribes were forced out, and their culture, language, and traditions were nearly destroyed. Colonization meant survival for the Europeans, but devastation for the indigenous people that were the people that lived in America as the indigenous people. Britain controlled their colonies so tightly, but back at home, after the French and Indian War in the year 1763, Britain needed money and taxed their colonies. The acts that appeared were, for example, Stamp Act of 1765, Townshend Acts of 1767, and Tea Acts of 1773, where colonists were hungry because they had no representatives in British Parliament. Britain controlled trade through the Navigation Acts, forcing colonies to trade mainly with Britain. British soldiers killed 5 colonists during a protest, and this increased rage and anger. Colonists dumped Britain tea into Boston Harbor to protest the high taxes. Britain punished Massachusetts by closing Boston Harbor and limiting self-government. Colonists were required to house British soldiers, which caused resettlement. At the same time, many colonists wanted more political freedom and control over their own laws. These tensions eventually led to the American Revolution Act that took place in the year 1773. And famous protests followed, including that of the Boston Tea Party. The idea of independence began to grow as Americans were beginning to realize the importance of ruling their own people and ruling their own land by forming their own government to drive away the British colonial man. In the year 1775, the need and the urge of Americans to become freed from the colonial power began to rise higher and higher. And as the tension rose, fighting began at Lexington and Concord in April 1775 between the colonial militaries and the British soldiers. In July 4th, the year 1776, the colonies officially declared independence from Britain. Thomas Jefferson helped write the document, and George Washington led the Continental Army. His leadership kept the army united despite many early defeats. In the year 1778, France joined the war and provided soldiers, weapons, money, naval support, and this was a turning point in the war. America and French forces defeated British General Cornwallis at Yorktown, Virginia. This was the final major battle. Britain officially recognized American independence in the Treaty of Paris in the year 1783. So independence was achieved through war foreign support and strong leadership over 8 years, from the year 1775 to the year 1783. After the declaration of the American freedom or independence, the United States of America was born, and this never left without the opportunities that were created as a result of the colonization of America. The colonists could own land which was hard to get in Europe, and owning land allowed farming, wealth, and social status. Colonists could farm cash crops like tobacco, rice, and cotton. Trade and business opportunities increased with the growing towns and ports. Groups like Puritans, Quakers, and Pilgrims could practice their religion freely. Colonists had some self-government in local assemblies, which gave experience in democracy. Poor Europeans could improve their social and economic positions in the colonies. Farming, trade, navigation, and craftsmanship developed in these colonies. Colonists could explore new lands and natural resources, creating new settlements and towns. Based on the benefits that the colonists found after colonizing the United States of America, a majority of the British colonists never went back to England, but colonists who remained loyal to Britain were called loyalists. Many moved to Canada, the Caribbean, or back to Britain. About 60,000 to 100,000 loyalists left the new United States, as they were loyal to their masters back in England. Colonists who supported independence or were neutral stayed in America. They continued farming, trading, and building the new nation, as they had acquired a bigger junk piece of land, and already they had businesses that were already running. British soldiers withdrew after the Treaty of Paris that happened in the year 1783. So while some people left, the majority of colonists remained and helped build the United States of America. What do you think? This must be the reason as why America is dominated with the majority that are not natives. The colonists came, colonized America, gained benefits by acquiring land and developing companies and businesses. And upon America gaining independence, they never went back home, because in Europe there were no enough land or the prestige or privileges that they found in the United States of America. If you are pleased with our history, kindly remember to like, subscribe, and share. Meet you next time. My name is Maxwell.